Our final keynote speaker for this afternoon is somebody some of you may know, but for those of you that don't, it's a special treat. He's my good friend, David Morgan. He is publisher of The Morgan Report. If you don't know what that is, go to themorganreport.com, do yourselves a favor, sign up as a subscriber, and you'll get all the intel that David Morgan has, not only on precious metals, but on sound money, on investing, and what it takes to make sure that not only you're protecting, but you're growing your wealth during these crazy volatile times. So it's our last speaker of the day. Sit up, pay attention. David Morgan from The Morgan Report, thank you so much for joining us at the Virtual Gold Conference today.
Well, Kerry, I'm very happy to be with you. I wish it wasn't virtual. I'll tell you, as you know, and this is true, and you get tired of hearing it. I have to just say, everyone, that Kerry put on probably one of the best events I have ever attended, and I have attended quite a few. And when she had the speaker dinner at the end of the last live event I was honored to be asked to speak at, I don't think I have ever laughed so hard for so long on something so funny in my life. And to let people know, and Kerry could fill it in better, but it was basically a guy that pretends to be a corporate executive at whatever venue you're hosting. So, you know, we were doing mining, so he pretended to be this expert in mining, and he does it for, you know, real estate, airline travel, you know, you name it. And he's so good. He has you persuaded, at least some of us, for usually I'd say everyone from the start, you know, if this credentials is bad, it's all made up, but you don't know. And somewhere along the line, you start questioning some of the stuff he's saying. But honestly, Kerry, I will never forget that whole event, but especially that evening.
Thank you, David. Well, I kind of think it's like the world that we're living in now. Is it all, what do you believe? What don't you believe? You know, it's kind of like, that's kind of coming true now. And we are sitting in, I guess, fairly volatile times. Now, we have an investor audience with us today, and they are from all over the world. I've checked where people have registered from. We've got them from Denmark, from New Zealand, from the US, from Canada, from everywhere. Now, some of them will watch this after it's been recorded, but now that we're just going live now, it's been pretty volatile. Last week, we saw a 4% drop in the gold and the silver price. And I know that you actually said to your subscribers, you could see that this was coming. What is going on with precious metals markets right now?
Well, they're shaking. First of all, I could say so much, and you know I can be long-winded. First of all, let's just talk about a bull market. A bull market's function is to shake off as many adherents as it possibly can all the way up. The old adage that the bull market climbs a wall of worry is a very, very good nomenclature for what we witness in a stock bull market or in a whatever bull market it happens to be. Precious metals are no different, other than from my perspective, sometimes there seems to be more emotional adhesion to the metals than there are to, let's say, stocks in general. That's my take. You don't have to agree. So when these type of events happen, it disgusts people. It shakes them off. They get off the bull ride, only to see that if they had hung on, that, you know, 2 months from now, 2 years from now, whatever the time frame, and we don't know the future, you wish you'd held on, not sold out your position, or not been discouraged. So that's one. I think the more important point is, what is gold? And I think most people have an idea, but I'm going to explain it. I'll say it more succinctly. What is gold's purpose? Right. And the moniker to my website now, it used to be Money, Metals, and Mining. It's now Building and Preserving Wealth. Well, to preserve your wealth, you have to keep up with inflation. And what is inflation? Well, we all know it's printing too much fiat money. Basically, that's what inflation is. And since that's been going on for a very long time, you need something that will preserve your wealth, or in other words, stay even with inflation. Now, what is the true inflation rate? And that's a very difficult question to answer, because governments lie. And anyone that doesn't believe that should turn off this video immediately. So governments have their way of making their statistics look advantageous to them. And this is true in the United States and all other countries. But if you go back in very short history, when I was younger, in my, let's say, 20s or so, go back to 1980, what you find is that the metrics used back then were pretty darn accurate. So there is a gentleman named John Williams that runs a website called shadowstats.com, which does the metrics from the 1980s, where you get a pretty accurate picture of what I'll call true inflation. And true inflation's been running around 9% for several years now. Now here's
9%, David.
9%. Yep. 9.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if we look at gold from the year 2000, when we started this gold bull market, and you invested at that time, when gold was at 252 US dollars, gold has had a CAGR, compounded growth rate of 10% per year for 20 years. So from that perspective, gold has done its job, and really then some, because the annual rate of inflation is 9 and gold has been 10, and it's done its job. It has preserved your wealth. Gold's really not there to make you wealthy. Now, there are times when it gets way overvalued in a short period of time. And if you're smart enough to take advantage of that and realize gold is overvalued, yes, it could make you wealthy, so to speak, or wealthier or whatever. But its main function is the constant. The gold, an ounce is a gold ounce, whether it's minted in Australia with a kangaroo on it, or it's minted in Great Britain with the Queen on it, it's still an ounce of gold. And so it's done its job. So that's one thing I think everyone, regardless of this big smash down and, the volatility, you take a deep breath and ask yourself a question. Did gold preserve my wealth? And for the last 20 years, it has. Now, that's not to discount that somebody bought it at the peak, around 2000 USD or the Aussie equivalent, and watch it go down, down, down for 8 years and now start to come back up. I get that. But I have to look from what I just said from a longer term perspective. And I was pounding the table. I mean, I don't think excuse the ego. I don't think anyone was pounding the table or jumping up and down harder or more than I was at the bottom of the market. Of course, I didn't have any following at all, but it's doing my best. And I had some followers, but not many. And I said, this is the gift of gifts of gifts. On an inflation-adjusted basis, silver is at the lowest price it's ever been in all of history.
Wow.
All of history. We've got like 4,000 years of history, and I'm telling you, this is the low. And you know what, Kerry? No one gave a fig.
Wow.
No one could buy it, could care less, except guess who bought? It wasn't the millionaires, and it wasn't the multimillionaires. It was the billionaires. Who bought the all-time low? Warren Buffett. 129.7 ounces of physical silver. He took over 20% of the world's silver supply off the market. Who else? Someone I don't really care for, but a fact is a fact. George Soros, Apex Silver Mines. Who else? Not a millionaire, not a multimillionaire, a billionaire. Who would that be? Bill, who I also don't like very much, Gates, Pan American Silver. So the billionaires were buying low, but the general public was toity-toy, hody-hum, da-di-da. Who cares about silver, especially when it's low? And so I don't want to belabor it, but silver, wait a minute, gold compounded at 10%, compounded 20 years from the bottom. Mm-hmm. What did silver do? Well, folks, I don't like saying this, but first of all, I'm not unhappy with what I'm about to say. I'm somewhat surprised, but not a lot. Silver is compounded at an annual growth rate of 9% all the way up for the same 20-year time frame. So it's been dead even with John Williams' work of 9% inflation. Now, silver, I've said many times, could make you wealthy. And so it hasn't really. I mean, it's done its job, or it's done gold's job. It's maintained your wealth. Has it done what I expect out of silver? No, I expect silver to outperform gold. And it has a few times during this bull run. And remember, we're at my studied opinion, we're at the final leg of the major leg up in silver and gold that will make the last two legs up look like warm-ups. This next leg should be the most spectacular. Doesn't mean we aren't going to hit these volatile periods that will cause you to say, I'm tired of the manipulation. I'm tired of the volatility. I'm tired of the banks. I'm tired of the stock market. I'm tired of our politicians. I'm tired of the illness. I'm tired of the water supply, and I don't like the way the air looks. I mean, all those things are there, but nonetheless, you've got to keep a steady hand on the tiller. And the way you do that, and this, sounds elementary, but the best football teams, the best footballers, they always, tennis players, golfers, you know what? The best of the best look at the fundamentals over and over. And the fundamental fact is there's a right amount and there's a wrong amount. If you've got your whole life savings in the silver market, you've got the wrong amount in almost all cases. If you got the right amount and this volatility hits, it's a lot easier to keep your hand on the tiller and keep the course steady, even though you've hit a big wave and you got to correct and you get off course and it's discouraging, but you got a steady hand, you get back on course. But if you've got that ship weighted too much to one side and you hit that big wave, you may not be able to recover. So I have really been pretty strong from the beginning. I put it in writing that 10% is the right amount for most people.
Okay.
Which means you have 90%. You can bet on Tesla. It's 50 times overvalued. Well, it's going to 500 times overvalued. Buy some. I don't care. My sister called me up. I bought Tesla. I'm going, oh, you're kidding. She made, 30% in about 2 weeks and sold it. Good for her. But, I'm overeducated in investing. I fully admit that. But you get the idea. But when you've got this philosophical bent that we know that we have it in a way, you and I, Kerry, speaking for you, I don't mean to, but we know what's wrong with the system. We know that the bankers are cheating. We know that fiat fails. We know all these fundamental facts. It has a propensity for people to understand really the only thing that's going to be left standing in theory is the precious metals. But that's not how the world is.
That's in theory, isn't it?
But in reality, all the real wealth stays there. All the hotels, all the businesses, all the wheat fields, all the oil, all the proposed IPOs, they all are there. So they get repriced. And in terms of gold, they get repriced to the gold or silver holders' advantage because silver and gold make up for all the misallocations of capital, all the misprinting, all the misdeeds, all the political promises that didn't come true, and all the banking lies. And that's what we're waiting for. At least that's what I'm waiting for. But in the meantime, to say, well, I hate gold because blah, 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 or it isn't doing this, it's done its job. And it will continue to do its job. And when we get to the top, that's going to be when I'll be one of the most loved and hated at the same time ever, especially if I'm lucky enough to call the top again, because I've called every top so far. And that will be, you'll be calling me up. I'm doing an interview. I didn't know you were a member of the Illuminati, David. No one would call the top of silver. You can't be serious. We all, and it'll go on and on because silver and gold, in my view, will get overvalued. And that's a hard concept right now because they are so undervalued. But all markets go up and down, and all markets go from undervalued to fair value to overvalued.
And right now you're saying that both gold and silver are very much undervalued. So for those people that are sitting on the sidelines and looking at the volatility and looking at the fact that last week it dropped 4%, and they're like, well, why would I go into that when I can, here in Australia, buy property, which seems to be going up, 10% every month over here. It's insane. You're saying that now, because as a good investor, you would say, first of all, have 10% of your wealth in gold and or silver, but also have a look at things which are undervalued. And right now you're saying it is both silver and gold are undervalued in the long term.
Yes, they are. Yep. And that shows you, those 20 years I keep harping on how undervalued gold was there. to continue to compound at the true inflation rate, and it's still undervalued. So when it started at 252, remember, I told you, and I'll repeat, when I said this is now is the time, and only billionaires are getting into silver, it was the lowest it's been in thousands of years. So think about that. How many people were yelling that and telling you that and talking about that? Not too many. And then as the years went by, silver went from 5 to 10. Wouldn't you like to buy silver at 10? Yeah, can't. It's not there now. And then silver at 15. And anyway, the point being that the overall trend is up. The overall trend will remain up. In the last phases of any bull market, you get into what we call the exponential phase, where we start to match what the money supply looks like. It looks like what we call the hockey stick, or that great big almost straight up move. And I think that's going to be, and that's what people get the most excited, and the most money is won and lost in that last phase. And you want to be able to hold on to the right time and to think you're going to get out the top. Follow somebody else, don't follow me. Now, I did say I've called every top so far, and I may get lucky and call this one. I don't know. But my plan isn't to call the top. My plan is to take a profit and leave a little bit for somebody else so it keeps going up. Being a commodities trader for many, many years, and still dabbling in it on occasion, you want to sell in the strength. You don't want to sell the top, because you're the last seller, or and there's no more buyers left. Yeah. And once that happens, now you're in trouble, because the price will come down almost as fast as it went up, or sometimes faster. So,
but that's if you want to make I guess a profit out of it. Right. But that aside, if you were to sell some of your gold or silver from a long-term holder, I guess, and a way to, as you say, it's almost like an insurance policy, you would always keep some gold or silver. Would that be correct? I'm
so glad you brought that up, Kerry. You're such a smart lady. Look, the real purpose of gold, and you could say silver, but more gold than silver, is legacy wealth. Look, I worked pretty hard. I earned what I've got, and I don't really need it all. It's a security blanket for me, you might say. It's true wealth. It doesn't rot. It's the best of the best. The best money there is precious metals. But I don't plan on selling off the top. What am I going to do? Buy another house? Am I going to get a speedboat? Not at my age. I'm going to pass it on as legacy wealth, right? I might buy something. I don't know. And I probably will start a foundation. I'll probably start something for the general benefit of people and society, to teach the truth about real money and why it's important. I'll probably do that's in my plan. But the other part of my plan is legacy wealth, that when my kids want to go back to school, and one of them does, she may end up with a doctorate. I don't know. I'm not that big on, I'll just leave it at that. But it's up to them. And then they could pass it on to, wouldn't it be nice to be able to say that my grandkids get to go to college because of the hard work that I put aside, right? Yeah. So I'm so happy you brought that up, because it's not all about me. I mean, the whole purpose, and I don't want to get too philosophical when I can, but the whole purpose of wealth is security for most people. Yeah. Most people aren't megalomaniacs. If I have 27 mansions and they're not all bigger than yours, I feel inferior. I mean, there's only a few nut jobs like that, but they're there. And most of them are in the billionaire class, unfortunately. But for us normal people, enough is enough, and to love what you have and be content with it. That's one of the roots of true happiness. Enjoying what you have and not having to have more, but how much is enough, and that varies person to person. But that's kind of the idea. And the reason you own precious metals is because in these turbulent times, what I like to use the sailing metaphor again, these uncharted waters, if you don't have something, at the base of the sailboat to hold it, down, I forget what it's called, but all that weight at the bottom, you're going to be tossed every which way. And we don't. We want to maintain a steady course. Yeah, it's going to ebb and flow. We're going to hit high seas and low and have the storms, but at least we got our hand on the tiller. We're going to navigate through. We're going to have a good life. We're going to benefit each other on and on. So a little on the philosophical side, but legacy wealth, and the only legacy wealth that you can do are three things: gold, you could add silver, real estate, or fine art. Fine art is way out of my league. I'm just not there. And in my lifetime, I'm not going to be there. But those are the only really three ways. And precious metals is the easiest. Real estate as well. I mean, most people are pretty familiar. The problem I have with real estate, and it's me, I'm not going to say there's a lot of real estate investors watching this, that there is a government interference, and there you could say so in the gold market as well. But you know, if times get tight, they can always go to the property owners and say, "Oh, you wealthy property owners, we're going to readjust the tax base on you," or whatever. And the other part in the States, I don't know how prevalent it is in Australia, but they have what they call eminent domain. Well, we want your land. We're building a freeway here, and you've got to move. We're going to blast your house out of the way. We're going to put down this landing strip. And I hate to say, I don't mind saying it, I love speaking the truth. In a lot of cases, you don't get fair value. You get what they say is fair value. You don't even get a vote on it. Now, there's been some lawsuits and stuff like that, and sometimes people are made whole, and sometimes they give up. So anyway, so here's, and I don't want to dwell on it. Look, there's no guarantees in life. There's no perfect investment in life. You do have to diversify. Precious metals, to me, are the most important, because it's that base at the sailboat. It's that one solid thing that's been there for thousands of years that you can count on. You probably count on for another thousands of years. But there's lots of other places to go. There's lots of other things to do and other things to see. And if you're only holding on to the metals with both hands, you're kind of limited yourself.
I think that's a really good analogy that you just said then, David, which is, you know, you're going to create a strong foundation and, you know, make your base, the silver and the gold, and build from there, because it's not the only way to build your wealth, but it's certainly going to help you in an inflationary period protect as well as potentially grow your wealth. But David, one of the things with you is that you say there is nothing more critical to your financial future than a sound money system. And you've been a very strong proponent of a strong, sound monetary system. What do you mean by that? Because that's the premise of the Morgan Report, to have a sound monetary system. If you could just let our audience know what you mean by that, and the fact that you're teaching people all about that.
Sure. It's a big bite and a lot to chew and swallow. But look, the whole system, whether you are, you know, from India or Pakistan or Southeast Asia, Canada, South America, doesn't matter. Everybody is concerned about their money. Money transcends geographical location, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, everything. You name it, everyone is concerned about their money. So because of that transcendent feature about it, if there's one thing about it that we should have, is it should be universally valuable to everyone, with no equivocation, with no thought about there being any funny business with it. In other words, it's there, it's transparent, it's immutable, it's the same, it's fungible, and that's true, honest money, gold or silver, preferably both in a bimetallic standard. Well, we lost that, and we lost that really in the late 1800s, but more specifically in 1971, August 15th. We're almost coming up on, what would that be, 50-year anniversary? Do the math in my head. Anyway, so the problem is that something is important to all humanity, that you have to earn money to live. It's very important. And for it to be based on a lie, it means that everything from that point forward is a lie, and we're living a lie. And the lie is that I can print something of value ad nauseum into infinity, and it still maintains value, as a lie. And so everyone that has to earn money to live, which is most of the planet, is forced by the political and the banking class to do something that's basically illegal. they're counterfeiting for themselves to benefit themselves at the expense of the world population. And if that doesn't, it's probably not the first time you've heard it, but if it is, it's probably a pretty big wake-up call, because so many people are too busy trying to earn a living and get enough of that quote unquote money to be able to survive, that they never ask the fundamental question of where does it come from, who controls it, and why do they control it? And of course, if you go a step further, which is my basic premise of the entire picture, is that money is power. And if money is power, and you can print it up to whatever level you want, then you don't have to really negotiate too much to buy a politician. I could buy that one for $1 million Aussies, and it takes 10 million to buy that one. Let's just get some more printed up and we'll buy that politician. Oh, we don't like that one. Oh, that one's easy. She's available for only, 2 million. And believe it or not, and you don't have to, almost all people can be bought. And this is something, again, now this is a humanity problem, not a monetary problem in a way. It has to do with integrity. But I want to let my little harsh statement off the hook a bit by saying this. For all of recorded history, there's a direct correlation with the debasement of the currency and the debasement of the society. So another one, it's the chicken and the egg. As the money is depreciated, it becomes worth less and worth less. The moral structure becomes worth less and worth less, and it's easier to buy people. So it'd be hard to bribe a farmer, or let's say a guy or a gal. I always want to include the women. When I say man, I mean everybody. But regardless, the idea being that somebody that worked hard at his own farm in the 1890s and pretty much hit retirement, wanted to give back, and went and ran for Congress. Now that guy be pretty hard to buy, or that gal, but time goes forward and things get more and more corrupted. So I hope I'm making my point that one, not even today can everybody be bought, but that's the exception, not the rule. Whereas if you go back 100, 120 years, that would be the exception.
David, we're running out of time, and I really want to get to this question because we have so many people on the call today, and because we've heard from a number of the ASX-listed gold mining companies today. So I do want you to say shares are a good way to profit, but in your opinion, we've got physical gold, we've got ETFs, we've got gold equity shares. For those people that are listening and thinking, oh, what do I do? How do I protect and grow my wealth? What's the best way to profit, not to protect, but to profit, do you think at the moment?
Absolutely, no doubt. Large cap, cash rich, unhedged mining companies. There's no doubt about it. They are, if gold's undervalued, and it is, there's nothing as undervalued as the miners. And you'll make more money in paper gold. Look, you're buying the golden goose when you buy the right mining company. If you buy the golden egg, that's your wealth preservation. Right. But if you want to really make money, own the goose, not the egg.
What about ETFs? We haven't had anybody presenting on ETFs today, but what's your view? Is that a lazy person's way of making sure they've got, I guess, exposure to precious metals?
Somewhat. It depends on the ETF. I always try to take things on a case-by-case basis. I mean, for like some of the ETFs that are like the junior silver miners, that's probably a good way, unless you study the hell out of it like I do. And I don't want to pay David the $500 a year. I'd rather pay the $500 a year to the ETF manager. It's okay with me. As far as SLV or GLD, I wouldn't use that as a primary source of owning gold or silver. It really isn't. It's a proxy. You get a share certificate. If you get a share certificate, look at a share certificate compared to a gold coin. They are not the same thing. If you want to use it as a hedge because you've got 10 or 20% of your wealth in metal or exposure to it, you can use it as a hedge. I have no problem against that. I have no problem if you want to buy it, but just know what you're buying. And then again, on the ETFs, it may be easier to buy one that has, top tier miners, or 2 times up or 2 times down. It depends. So I think they have their place. We write about them, Kerry. I used to say about every 6 months, probably about at least once a year, we go kind of through the ETFs, which ones we like, which ones we don't. There's slippage in some of them. So you might watch gold go up and up and up, but your ETF really is to keep you pace because the management fees are there and they grow. But I'm not against them. I think you're better off if you don't have to use the Morgan Report because there's other good writers out there, or you could do it on your own.
Well,
and if you balance it, you can do really well.
David, we are running out of time, but I do want to talk about the Morgan Report just briefly for those people out there that want to get access to your mind and your thinking and calling the top of the market or the bottom of the market. How can they subscribe to your newsletter, and how often do you send it out?
Just go to themorganreport.com, pull down the subscribe tab. There's a sales letter and a video. It's once a month on the publication part, and I do videos with yours truly speaking right to you on an as required basis. So sometimes you get one a week, sometimes one a month. Usually I average about 2 to 3 times a month. I'll do a video, I'll show you a chart, I'll take letters to the editor and talk about something that's beneficial to everybody.
David Morgan from the Morgan Report. As you said earlier, money is power. Subscribe to the Morgan Report and get your power and your money from David Morgan. Thank you so much for being our closing keynote speaker at the Virtual Gold Conference. And for those of you listening, make sure you check into the Zoom networking room right now, because that's where we're headed, over to the Zoom networking room where you can ask questions of our presenters. Thanks so much, David. It's been brilliant to see you.
Thank you, Kerry. Appreciate it.